Hikaru Kondo once worked as a writer for books about video games. He also spent time as a production assistant at Tokyo Movie Shinsha, known today as TMS Entertainment, on films like Spider-Man and Lupin III: Farewell to Nostradamus. But in 1999, after going independent, Kondo made a bold decision to start his own animation studio, a studio that over time would grow into one of the most respected names in the industry, renowned for its high quality and counted among the most successful anime studios ever. Of course, that kind of success didn't come overnight. The studio went through countless experiments with each project they created, and in this video, I'll be taking a look back at the history of the works that shaped the studio. So, let's take a look at the evolutions of Ufotable's animation works. In its earliest days, the studio didn't dive into full-scale anime production just yet. Instead, they started small by producing animated intros for Japanese television programs. One of Ufotable's first official works was the animated opening for Utaban, a popular Japanese music variety show that aired weekly on TBS from 1996. The format was more like a talk show, featuring musicians and celebrities as guests who would chat, joke around, and perform around 3 to 4 songs per episode. Ufotable produced the intro animation for this show between 2000 and 2002, with artwork led by Kazuo Ebisawa, a veteran animator and one of Studio's key founding members. Their animation work for television programs continued with the release of a comedy drama series called Tsuuhanman, which aired on Asahi TV. The show ended in September 2002, and its opening featured a brief animated segment produced by Ufotable. Ufotable's third early project was for Warau, a sketch comedy show that had been airing on Fuji TV since 1998. In October 2002, the show was rebranded under the new title Warau no Jorei, Gonna Go Crazy Funky Dogs. With the new name came a brand new animated opening, and that opening was created by Ufotable. These 3 programs were the studio's first professional animation jobs. They were small-scale projects, but it wouldn't take long before the studio moved on to working on a full anime series. Ufotable's anime debut came with Weiß Glühen, a sequel to the Weiß multimedia franchise. The series was created by legendary voice actor Takehito Koyasu, and it had a unique concept for its time by gathering a group of voice actors not only to act but also to form a fictional unit, crafting characters and stories inspired by their own personas. This cross-media approach, blending voice acting with music and storytelling, was innovative at the time. The Weiß franchise originally launched in 1997 with radio shows, CDs, manga, and light novels, before receiving its first anime adaptations in 1998, produced by Studio Magic Bus and Studio Plan. Then, in 2002, a sequel anime was released under the title Weiß Glühen, animated by Ufotable. This made it the first full anime series the studio worked on. Compared to the original, Glühen featured a noticeable improvement in animation quality. However, it wasn't without issues. Due to legal disputes, many of the original character design had to be altered, which disappointed some longtime fans. Narratively, Glühen also took a different direction. While the original anime was episodic in nature, the sequel adopted a more serialized approach, telling a single continuous story across its 13 episodes. For some, this change in pace made the story more engaging. In terms of structure, it was arguably more coherent. Critically, Glühen received mixed reactions. The plot was often considered standard, sometimes even absurd, with a tone that could flip between serious and unintentionally funny. But it clearly appealed to a female audience at the time, thanks to its cast of attractive male characters. In 2003, Ufotable continued its work in variety television by producing the opening animation for Warau no Taiyou, the latest installment in the long-running Warau comedy sketch series. This would mark the final time Ufotable contributed animation to a variety show, closing the door on their earliest chapter in television production. That same year, the studio also worked on the animated segments on the live-action film Bayside Shakedown 2, which went on to become the highest-grossing Japanese live-action film of all time at domestic box office. But the real highlight of 2003 came with the release of Sumebamyo kono Kosmoso Sutokotaisen Dokkoida, better known simply as Dokkoida. Based on the light novel by Taro Achi and illustrated by Yu Yagami, this series was Ufotable's first fully in-house anime production. While Weiß Glühen had marked their anime debut, Ufotable only served as a subcontracting studio on that project. But with Dokkoida, everything from planning to animation to post-production was handled entirely by Ufotable, making it their first true original effort. Dokkoida is a light-hearted slice-of-life comedy that parodies superhero tropes. Premise is chaotic and fun. Heroes, villain, and alien observers all end up living together in the same apartment building, unknowingly hiding their true identities from one another. The structure is episodic, more in line with a sitcom than serialized narrative. While it doesn't follow a deep or complex storyline, its charm lies in absurdity and character-driven humor. The show plays into a lot of early 2000s anime cliches, occasional fan service, exaggerated personalities, and over-the-top scenarios, but it handled them with enough self-awareness to stay entertaining. Each character has a bit of emotional depth behind their comedic exterior, and some episodes even take surprisingly heartfelt turns. While comedy is always subjective, Dokkoida managed to deliver moments that are genuinely funny and endearing. The animation was also impressive, especially by early 2000 standards, though the art style reflects the era. The fluidity and consistency of the animation show just how much potential Ufotable already had. Today, Dokkoida is largely forgotten. Style and tone don't exactly match the taste of modern anime audiences, but at the time of its release, it caught the attention of animation fans and industry insiders alike. Many were surprised that such small and new studio was able to produce a full 12-episode series almost entirely on its own and at such a high level of quality. One industry professional even remarked that Ufotable was a studio worth keeping an eye on. By 2004, Ufotable was beginning to explore new territory, most notably the world of video games. Their first step into this medium came through Symphonic Rain, a unique visual novel developed by Kogado Studio that blended narrative storytelling with rhythm-based gameplay. Ufotable was responsible for the game's animated opening and contributed background arts, marking their debut in game-related animation works. This collaboration with Kogado Studio didn't end there. That same year, Ufotable produced a short 2-episode OVA titled Tristia of the Deep Blue Sea, an anime adaptation of another Kogado Studio game released in 2002. The game itself was a mix of visual novel elements and building simulations, tasking player with a goal rebuilding the fallen steampunk city of Tristia. Watching the OVA without playing the game, however, can be a bit confusing, since it doesn't really start from the beginning of the game story and instead jumps into a specific segment or event. Viewers unfamiliar with the source material can feel like they've missed a lot, especially when it comes to background lore or character developments. Still, the OVA delivers on several fronts. It features good character design, solid animations, nice background arts, and a charming musical score. The studio's biggest anime project in 2004, however, was Nin Nin ga Shinobuden, better known to Western audiences as Ninja Nonsense. Based on a manga by Ryoichi Koga, this series marked a major tonal shift for Ufotable. It embraced absurdist gag-heavy comedy with zero concern for logic and structure. The story centers around Shinobu, a ninja in training, and her completely nonsensical adventures alongside her friends and her bizarre mentor, Onso Kumaru, a perverted talking talking yellow ball with a human face and an army of faceless ninja. Ninja nonsense doesn't aim to make sense, it aims to be funny, ridiculous, and chaotic in the best way. Stylistically, it stood out among Ufotable's early works. The art style is brighter, more colorful, and fit the show's hyper-comedic tone. Unlike their previous anime project, this one didn't have a serious overarching plot. It was purely episodic, relying on strong character moments and rapid-fire jokes to carry each episode. While the character design may not appeal to everyone, some might find them too simple or too weird, the animation itself was sharp and expressive. The background were fairly minimal, sometimes even bland, but the character motions and comedic timing where the Ufotable's growing technical skill truly shine. Some fan service moment feels dated by today's standards, and it's easy to tell the show was a product of early 2000s. But Ninja Nonsense still stands as a memorable and uniquely silly entry in Ufotable's catalog. In 2004, an anime titled Futakoi aired, produced by Telecom Animation Film. Based on a visual novel, Futakoi was a fairly standard romance harem series set in the middle school, where the protagonist somewhat attracts the attentions of multiple pairs of twin girls. While the twin gimmick gave it a bit of a novelty, the show didn't do much to stand out from a lot of mid-2000s harem anime. It relied heavily on familiar tropes and didn't offer much in terms of character depth or storytelling innovation. But then came Futakoi Alternative in 2005, a spiritual successor made by a completely different team. This time, Ufotable took the reins, working alongside Studio Feel and Studio Flag. Futakoi Alternative tossed out almost everything from the original, except for the character design and names. The tone shifted dramatically from light-hearted harem antics to a gritty, stylish action drama with explosion, car chases, and much more refined visual aesthetic. While the previous work featured a junior high school student as the protagonist, Futakoi Alternative features a 20-year-old detective as the protagonist. It also removed the harem aspect and focused its romance story only with one twins, and the other twins characters only become supporting characters, which make the romance of this anime a little bit more mature compared to the original. If the first Futakoi aimed to be a classic romantic comedy, Futakoi Alternative felt more like an experimental indie film. It mixed slapstick action, surreal gags, emotional themes, and avant-garde directions into a really great experience. The character dynamic were more mature, the story had emotional weight, and the animation quality was a noticeable leap forward for Ufotable. Critics and fans at the same time took notice. Futakoi Alternative was praised for its boldness and its polish. It ended up becoming one of the most crucial works in Ufotable's early history, not just because it proved their creative potentials, but because it opened the door to one of the most studio legendary collaborations. Atsuhiro Iwakami, producer at Aniplex, happened to see a Futakoi Alternative. Impressed by the directions and animations, he approached Ufotable CEO and Futakoi Alternative director Kondo Hikaru with a propositions to adapt Kara no Kyokai, a dark atmospheric series of novels written by Kinoko Nasu, the creator of Fate Stay Night. Nasu himself was on board almost instantly, stating Ufotable surely can do it. This would mark the beginning of a long and iconic partnership between Typhoon and Ufotable. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Before Kara no Kyokai, Ufotable still had a few more steps to take. Later that year, they worked on another project, this time in the world of JRPGs. Summon Night X Thesis Yoake no Tsubasa, a spin-off from the Summon Night franchise developed by Flight Plan for the PlayStation 2, featured an animated opening sequence produced by Ufotable. This marked their first collaboration with Bandai Namco Entertainment, and also their first animated opening for a major JRPG title. In 2006, Ufotable kept expanding its portfolio in the gaming world. This time, they worked on the opening animations for Disgaea 2: Cursed Memories, a strategy RPG developed by Nippon Ichi Software for the PlayStation 2. It marked another entry in the Ufotable's growing reputation for delivering stylish, energetic anime intros for Japanese RPGs, something they would continue to be known for in the years to come. But the real spotlight of 2006 was Ufotable's newest full-length anime project, Coyote Ragtime Show. Set in the chaotic sci-fi universe, Coyote Ragtime shows follow a charismatic outlaw named Mr., who's on a mission to recover a legendary treasure left behind by the infamous pirate king Bruce Dockley. The treasure is hidden on the war-torn planet Graceland, which, just to up the stakes, is about to be destroyed by the Galactic Federations in exactly 7 days. It's a classic ticking time bomb setup with space pirates, android assassins, bounty hunters, and high-speed chases across the galaxy. On paper, it sounds incredible, and the first episode delivers big time. The pacing is tight, the action is explosive, and the direction does a great job introducing a sprawling cast of characters. The animation is slick, the music has energy, and the tone promises a wild space western adventure with heart and grit. But unfortunately, the rest of the series didn't quite up the momentum. As the episode rolled on, the pacing slowed and the character development took a back seat. Characters like Angelica and May, who left a strong impressions in the beginning, didn't get the arc or depth they deserve. Instead, the story shifted focus to Mr. and his crew, but even that storyline struggled to find emotional traction. Coyote Ragtime Show remains an interesting entry in Ufotable's early catalog. It showed that the studio wasn't afraid to tackle ambitious original IPs with complex settings and big cinematic energy, even if the executions didn't always land. "2007 was definitely one of the biggest turning points in Ufotable history. This was the year they began their legendary collaborations with Type-Moon, a partnership that completely transformed their image as an anime studio. But before we get to that massive moment, let's talk about what came earlier that year. First up was Gakuen Utopia Manabi Strait, which aired in the winter seasons. This series was based on a manga illustrated by Tartan Cheik, who also worked on the manga versions of Coyote Ragtime Show. Written by Ryunosuke Kingetsu, the anime is set in the year of 2035, during the time when declining birth rates have made going to high school a rare thing. Many schools are shutting down because of the lack of students. Now, that premise might sound depressing, but surprisingly, Manabi Strait isn't a sad show at all. Instead, it falls squarely into the cute girl doing cute things category, something that you would usually expect from studios like Dogakobo or Kyoto Animations. In fact, this aired 2 months before Lucky Star, which really kicked off the moe boom of the late 2000s. The story is heartwarming, the animation is solid, and while the art style might not be for everyone, it has that round, soft aesthetic that Ufotable rarely touches nowadays. Ufotable also began a long-running relationship with Bandai Namco by adapting one of the most beloved JRPGs of all time, Tales of Symphonia. Tales of Symphonia, the animation's Sylvarant arc, adapting the first part of the game's story into a 4-episode OVA. As with most game adaptations, especially JRPGs, pacing is a major issue. The Tales games are long and dense, often taking dozens of hours to finish, and compressing that into a short OVA meant that a lot of events had to be rushed or cut entirely. Still, for the long-time fans of the game, the anime served its purpose. It brought beloved scenes and battles to life with great animations. This adaptation wasn't really made for newcomers. It was a love letter to people who already knew the characters and the world. If you haven't played the game, you're probably better off starting there first, and then watching the anime to see your favorite moments brought to life. Speaking of games, Ufotable also teamed up again with developer Flight Plan to produce the opening animations for their JRPG Dragon Shadow Spell, a Japan-exclusive tactical RPG for the PlayStation 2. It's a pretty standard mid-2000 anime-style game opening, with dramatic theme song titled Rainbow by Daylight Fever. Nothing groundbreaking, but a nice addition to their growing list of JRPG work. But of course, the most important thing Ufotable released in 2007 was Kara no Kyokai. Based on one of Nasukinoko's earliest written works, Kara no Kyokai is a story steeped in mystery, supernatural elements, psychological tensions, and philosophical themes. The anime adaptations introduce a much darker, more cinematic side of Ufotable that no one had ever seen before. What made this adaptation stand out was how different it was from anything the studio had done before. The animation was layered with visual effects, photorealistic backgrounds, and digital compositing that gave the entire films an atmospheric and haunting look. The style that became the visual identity Ufotable is known for today. The music is just as unforgettable. With a soundtrack composed by Yuki Kajiura, Kara no Kyokai marked the beginning of the long and powerful creative bond between her and Ufotable. Her music, eerie, beautiful, and emotional, elevated the story's already intense tone and brought it to life in a way few soundtracks ever managed to do. Personally, I think this might be her best work as a composer in anime industry. Originally, Kara no Kyokai was planned as a trilogy, but Hikaru Kondo pushed for a full theatrical series that would adapt all 7 chapters of the original novel. Production actually began with a second chapter because there were discussions about changing the script for chapter 1. So chapter 1 to 4 were all worked on almost simultaneously. In late 2007, Ufotable released the first film, Overlooking View, followed shortly by the second, A Study in Murder, Part 1. 2008 was the year Ufotable went all in on Kara no Kyokai. You can really see how seriously and passionately they treated this project, because this year alone they released 4 movies in the series. That's basically their entire focus for the year, with the only other notable work being an opening animation for the video game Disgaea 3, continuing their collaboration with Nippon Ichi Software. But beyond that, it was all Kara no Kyokai. The third movie, Remaining Sense of Pain, was released in February. It's easily the most emotionally heavy and depressing entry up to that point, diving deep into the traumatic past of Fujino Asagami. It's also the first time Ufotable really pushed down boundaries in terms of explicit content, both in terms of violence and mature themes. It felt bold, raw, and definitely darker than anything they had ever animated before. Then came The Hollow Shrine, the 4th movie released in May. This one served as much needed breather. It slowed things down and gave us a crucial backstory, especially focusing on Shiki and her dual personalities. Compared to other movies, this one felt quieter and more introspective, but it was important for grounding Shiki's character and exploring her inner world. The minimalism, tone, and almost eerie calm made this one feel really different. The 5th movie, Paradox Spiral, was the moment people really started to see Ufotable's full potential. The direction became more dynamic, the action sequences were tightly choreographed, and the narrative started playing with structure in a way that kept you constantly engaged. The visuals are next level, the music is once again nailed it, the pacing, atmosphere, tension, it all just fantastic. This movie tells a story like a puzzle box, one piece at a time, pulling you deeper into the madness of its world. For a lot of fans, Paradox Spiral is the definitive Kara no Kyokai experience, and the first real glimpse of the powerhouse Ufotable was evolving into. But unfortunately, not every entry in 2008 could ride the same high. Later that year, in December, came the 6th movie, Oblivion Recording. While still technically solid, great sound design, beautiful animation, solid performances, it just didn't land as well as the others. The story was more fragmented, the emotional core wasn't as strong, and the pacing was kind of awkward, especially following the high-stakes complexity of Paradox Spiral. It also didn't help that Ufotable made quite a few changes from the original novel scenario, which rubbed some fans the wrong way. Compared to the 5th movie, Oblivion Recording felt more like a side story than a continuation of the epic momentum that had been building up. In 2009, Ufotable released Murder Speculation Part 2, the final chapter of the main Kara no Kyokai story. As with every entry before it, the tone was pitch black, filled with brutal, bloody violence, body mutilations, drug abuse, and a villain that felt completely inhuman. But despite all that darkness, the film managed to wrap up Shiki and Mikia's relationship with hope. With that final film, Kara no Kyokai had cemented itself as a cornerstone for Ufotable. It was the beginning of their creative identity. Visually stunning, tonally mature, narratively complex, Kara no Kyokai showed the world what kind of stories Ufotable could tell when they had a full creative control. And naturally, the partnership with Type Moon didn't end there. In fact, while they were still finishing 7 Kara no Kyokai film, Ufotable was already laying the groundwork for their next big Type Moon adaptation. But before we get there, Ufotable kept busy in 2009 with a bunch of side projects and collaborations. One of the more unusual works for that year was Yawarakame, a short and quirky 2-minute show for BTV, aimed at kids and mobile users, with the entire voice cast just one actress, Miyuki Sawashiro, voicing every single character. It's a weird little project. They also continued their long-running partnership with video game developer Flight Plan this year, creating the opening animation for PS2 game Sacred Blaze. They also worked with Kogado Studio again and Premium Agency to produce anime cutscenes for the PSP RPG Mimana Layer Chronicle, a game that felt very much inspired by Tales series in tone and gameplay. On top of that, Ufotable produced an animated prologue for the game God Eater to build hype ahead of its 2010 release. And finally, 2009 also marked Ufotable's first ever involvement with a Shonen Jump property. They created a 30-minute pilot episode for the manga Toriko, which was shown during the Jump Super Anime Tour. The pilot adapted the first 2 chapters of the manga and served as the first animated appearance of Toriko. It was a great showcase of Ufotable's skill at adapting even more traditional shonen-style content. Unfortunately, that was the only time Ufotable ever touched the series. When Toriko got a full TV anime later on, it was handed over Toei Animation. After the heavy-hitting years of Kara no Kyokai, 2010 felt a bit quieter for Ufotable, but that doesn't mean they weren't releasing anything. This was a year focused more on a smaller project, bonus content, and behind-the-scenes groundwork for what was coming next. First up, we had a very short, very strange OVA called Yuri Seiji Naoko-san, based on the gag manga by Kashmir. It is a niche comedy OVA with wacky, surreal humor built around a Yuri-obsessed alien's missions on Earth. Watching this anime without reading the manga, it's a bit hard to follow what's even going on, but you get the feeling that this is meant to be chaotic, weird, and a wacky story. Alongside Blu-ray box set for Kara no Kyokai, Ufotable released a 30-minute episode short film. And unlike the rest of the series, this one is all about quiet, reflective dialogue. It takes in a single place with Shiki and Mikiya talking about life, existence, and everything in between. It's slow yet beautiful. The background art, the music, the subtle animations, everything comes together to create this melancholic mood to a series that meant so much to Ufotable. In terms of video game collaborations, Ufotable stayed busy, especially with Bandai Namco. They officially followed up on the God Eater anime prologue they teased back in 2009 by animating the opening and in-game cutscenes for the God Eater PSP game, released in 2010. They also returned to the Summon Night series, this time animating the opening and cutscenes for Summon Night Grantee's Horobi no Tsurugi to Yakusoku no Kishi, another PS2 title. And for the Tales fan, Ufotable finally came back to finish what they started, Tales of Symphonia the animation. Telltale arc was released 4 years after the first arc aired. Just like before, it featured 4 episodes, each around 40-minute longs, and carried over the same visual directions and dramatic pacing. While it didn't reinvent anything, it stayed consistent, and for fans of the game, it was solid continuation. One of the most unexpected things Ufotable touched in 2010 was the anime Tencho franchise, the hyper-energetic mascot for Animate, one of Japan's biggest anime manga retailers. Ufotable produced 2 unique anime Tencho animation this year. The first was Anime Tencho Movie, a short OVA showcasing his over-the-top antics, and the second, a bizarre but legendary collab between Anime Tencho and the Toho Project. Both of these were only screened at the 2000 animate Ichiyoshi Bisoujo Anime Matsuri and have never been released anywhere else since then. Perhaps the most mysterious entry in Ufotable 2010 activities was the announcement of Girls' Work. Back in 2008, Taiyou had announced Girls' Work as an all-ages visual novel, alongside projects like Mao Tsukai no Yoru and Tsukihime Remake. But in December 2010, something changed. Girls' Work was now being reimagined as a TV anime, with Ufotable taking over the animations. The writer was Mete Hoshizora and Eri Takenashi was on character design. It looked ambitious and very different. The teaser trailers were released and the Taiyou fandom buzzed with excitement. But then, silence. The project slipped into development limbo. No updates, no release, no solid info. Even today, Girls' Work remained unreleased, stuck in strange space between hype and history. Still, it was a crucial sign of what was happening behind the curtain. Ufotable and Taiyou were becoming creative partners, building towards something much bigger. By 2011, Kara no Kyokai had solidified Ufotable's reputation, but as critically acclaimed as the series was, it was still very niche. The non-chronological storytelling, the heavy themes, and the quiet atmospheric pacing made it kind of intimidating for casual anime fans. It was a masterpiece, but not something that everyone could easily get into. So, while Kara no Kyokai was deeply important for Ufotable, the studio still hadn't broken into the anime mainstream just yet. But that was about to change, because in 2011, Ufotable and Taiyou teamed up again, and this time it was for something that would change everything. Adapted from Gen Urobuchi's 2006 light novel, Fate Zero is a prequel to the beloved visual novel Fate Stay Night, and unlike Kara no Kyokai, Fate Zero came with a big advantage. It was connected to an already popular franchise and had a premise that was way easier to hook people with. A deadly battle royale between mages and legendary heroic spirits to win a wish-granting Holy Grail. And what really made Fate Zero explode was how Ufotable approached it. Cinematic lighting, fluid 3D camera movements, and incredible fights choreography, combined with Urobuchi's mature storytelling full of philosophical dilemmas, moral gray areas, and iconic characters. Even though Fate Stay Night had already been adapted in 2006 by Studio Dean, Fate Zero was the anime that introduced a whole new generation to the Fate universe and to Ufotable. After this, Ufotable wasn't just that studio that did Kara no Kyokai anymore. This was the moment Ufotable truly stepped into the spotlight. Fate Zero wasn't the only thing they did that year. After adapting Telltale arc of the Tales of Symphonia in 2010, Ufotable wrapped up the story with the United World in 2011. It was only 3 episodes long, but it closed out the story with solid production and emotional payoff. Sure, some of the old criticism remained, but fans were happy to finally see Journey finished. Their relationship with Bandai Namco also kept growing stronger. In 2011, Tales of Xillia was released for the PlayStation 3, and for the first time in the series history, the opening and cutscenes were animated not by Production IG, but by Ufotable. They also animated the opening for Black Rock Shooter, the game, a PSP title from Image Epoch. On the more experimental side of things, Takayuki Hirao, director of Paradox Spiral and Futakoi Alternative, released an original short film called Sakura no Ondo. It was a 20-minute anime you could only watch at Ufotable Cinema in Tokushima City, where the studio is headquartered. This wasn't based on a game or a novel. It was their first ever original Ufotable creation. While it didn't make waves globally, it showed Ufotable's growing confidence in creating completely original stories, not just adaptations. Lastly, 2010 gave us one more quiet Ufotable Taiyou collaborations. Tsuki no Sango was a short story written by Kinoko Nasu, read live on stage by Maya Sakamoto as part of theater event called Sakamoto Maya no Mangetsu Ro Dokukan. While she read, Ufotable created a moody, dreamlike background animation to play alongside it. The story was later released as a light novel and drama CD, with promotional video also animated by Ufotable. By 2012, Ufotable was steadily growing, expanding its range of works, experimenting with genres, and of course, riding the high of Fate Zero's success. One of the more unexpected turns this year was Ufotable's adaptations of a story by Junji Ito, the legendary horror manga author known for nightmares like Uzumaki and Tomie. The anime was Gyo, based on Ito's grotesque oceanic horror tale about fish with mechanical legs wreaking havoc on the land. While Gyo holds the honor of being the first Junji Ito manga ever adapted into anime, it didn't exactly blow people away. Directed by Takayuki Hirao, the OVA took some liberties with the original story, adding new characters, changing character dynamics, and even shifting the tone a bit. While some praised Ufotable's effort and animation quality, manga fans weren't too happy with how far it strayed from Ito's original vision. That said, compared to other Junji Ito adaptations, Gyo still ends up looking not so bad in retrospect. 2012 also gave us a quirky little surprise with Minori Scramble, a 40-minute OVA based on the 2007 slice of life manga by Chihaya Mikage. It's a weird, colorful, slightly sci-fi story about a girl and a penguin robot. With energetic animation, quirky humor, and a dash of warmth, the OVA offers a short but colorful and fun experience that shows Ufotable's lighter, more comedic side. Ufotable's work with Bandai Namco kept rolling strong. After animating the cutscenes and opening for Tales of Xillia in 2011, they returned to handle Tales of Xillia 2, which launched in 2012 for the PlayStation 3. The sequel kept Ufotable's signature alive in the cutscene. But of course, the biggest headline this year was the continuations of Fate Zero. Originally, Fate Zero was supposed to be aired all in one go back in 2011, but according to director Yoake, the team made the call to split it into two cours so they could polish the animation even more. And considering how action-heavy the second half of the story is, it was definitely the right call. The second half of the Fate Zero aired in 2012, and it's widely regarded as one of Ufotable's best works of all time. The animation was absolutely gorgeous, the fight scenes were intense, and the emotional stakes were off the charts. With Fate Zero Blu-ray box sets, fans also got a little extra, a bonus short series called Fate Zero Onegai Ansben Sodanshitsu. It's a comedy segment in the style of Tiger Dojo from the original Fate Stay Night visual novel. It features Irisville von Einsburn and a mysterious little girl as they walk viewers through the rules and history of the Holy Grail War. It's funny, it's weirdly informative, and the script was written by Kinokonasu himself. A neat little bonus for Fate fans who wanted more lore with a smile. And finally, 2012 wrapped up with more One Fate. To go along with PS Vita release of Fate Stay Night, Ufotable created a brand new opening animation for the visual novel. It was brief but beautiful, packed with hints of what was to come. Kara no Kyokai made a bit of a return to the spotlight with a TV version, a 13-episode broadcast of the films rearranged into chronological order. For a series known for its deliberately out-of-order storytelling, this new release was clearly meant to set the stage for something new, or rather something final. That something was Kara no Kyokai Future Gospel. Originally written by Kinokonasu as a bonus story during the theatrical run of Paradox Spiral back in 2008, Future Gospel was adapted into full-length film in 2013. Unlike mainline Kara no Kyokai films, which lean into existential dread, death, and philosophical horror, Future Gospel carried a more hopeful tone. But make no mistake, it didn't abandon the emotional weight, the tension, or that moody, almost surreal Ufotable atmosphere we've all come to love. Alongside it came Extra Chorus, a shorter side story animated as a companion piece based on the manga drawn by Takeuchi Takashi. It was a light-hearted and emotional epilogue that gave fans a quiet, satisfying farewell to the world of Kara no Kyokai. Tucked into the same screenings of Future Gospel was a fun little surprise, Fate Zero Cafe, based on a Yonkoma manga published in New Type magazine and drawn by Ufotable themselves. Fate Zero Cafe is imagine what the Holy Grail War cast would do if instead of fighting to the death, they open a cozy little cafe. It's silly, it's squirm, and only 2 episodes were ever made. The second one wouldn't arrive until 2016. Meanwhile, on the gaming front, Ufotable continued its regular collaborations with Bandai Namco. God Eater 2 launched for the PSP in 2013, and just like the first game, Ufotable was back to handle the anime cutscenes. They also worked on Summon Night 5, another Bandai Namco RPG for PSP. Ufotable handled its cutscenes as well, but unlike God Eater, this would be the last time the studio worked on the Summon Night series. But the hidden treasure of 2013 would be Magical Sisters Yo-Yo and Nene. It's a bit of an outlier in Ufotable's catalog, a full-length original movie with zero connections to the Type Moon, Fate, or Bandai Namco. Instead, it's a charming magical adventure based on the manga Noroyashimai by Hirarin. In a fantasy realm, 2 sisters, Yo-Yo and Nene, work as the curse breakers, lifting magical curses from unlucky clients. But when a massive tree covered in strange modern buildings appears near their home, things get weird. Yo-Yo ends up transported to a modern Japan, where she meets 2 kids afflicted by a mysterious curse, and the story spirals into a mix of fantasy, family, and mystery. Magical Sisters Yo-Yo and Nene may look like a kid's film on the surface, and to be fair, it is accessible to younger viewers. But Ufotable didn't take that as an excuse to slack off. The animation is fluid and expressive, the action scenes are amazing, and the atmosphere has a Ghibli-like charm, but with a distinct Ufotable edge. The music, composed by Goshina, brings dramatic weight to both wonder and the tensions. It's a film that got overlooked by many, but if you're into magical realism's heartfelt storytelling, it's absolutely worth a try. By 2014, the success of Fate Zero has reshaped how people look at Ufotable and the Fate franchise as a whole, so it was only a matter of time before the studio set their sight on the Fate Stay Night. It actually started small, an opening animation for the PS Vita re-release of Fate Stay Night visual novel. But once Ufotable dipped their toes into that world again, they wanted more. They had the ambitions to fully adapt the visual novel into a proper anime series. But there was one major problem. Fate Stay Night isn't a single story, it's 3 separate routes: Fate, Unlimited Blade Works, and Heaven's Feel, each exploring different characters and theme, and that made things complicated. Initially, Takashi Takeuchi and Hikaru Kondo wanted to adapt Fate route, the one centered on Saber, to build on her character development from Fate Zero, but that idea didn't sit well with everyone on the production committee. The reason was Studio Dean had already adapted the Fate route back in 2006. That's when Atsuhiro Iwakami stepped in. He proposed that Unlimited Blade Works, the second route of the visual novel, would be the ideal next step, even though it too had already been adapted into a movie by Studio Dean in 2010. Iwakami argued that Unlimited Blade Works would be better presented as a series rather than 1 hour-long feature film. Fate Stay Night Unlimited Blade Works premiered its first score in 2014, with Takahiro Miura, the man behind the beautiful PS Vita opening, taking the director's seat. The original voice cast returned, and the soundtrack was composed by Hideyuki Fukusawa, who had already worked with Type Moon on Witch on the Holy Night. From the moment it aired, Unlimited Blade Works showcased just how far Ufotable had come. The animation was crisp and polished. The fight scenes were amazing, filled with glowing magic circles, elegant swordplay, and breathtaking effect that Ufotable could pull off. If Fate Zero was their breakout, Unlimited Blade Works was the confirmation this studio was now at the top of its game. That wasn't the only Fate content Ufotable touched in 2014. Type Moon also re-released the visual novel fantasy sequel, Fate Hollow Ataraxia, for PS Vita, and naturally the game came with a brand new anime opening, directed by Takuro Takahashi, with of course Ufotable on animation duty. The result is short, sweet, and dripping with style, just like fans expected. Meanwhile, on the Tales side of things, Ufotable continued their strong partnership with Bandai Namco. This time, they were gearing up for the release of Tales of Zestiria. Much like how they animated the God Eater prologue back in the day, Ufotable released an anime special titled Tales of Zestiria: Dawn of the Shepherd, a prologue to the upcoming game. It was a nice move, blending narrative setup with cinematic flair to give player a taste of what was to come. Picking up the right where the first season left off, the second cour of Animated Blade Works took everything fans love. The philosophical duels, the grand hero classes, the tensions between ideals and reality, and cranked it to 11. The animation remained top tier, with fluid cinematic action scenes, expressive character moments, and emotionally heavy showdown, and solidified it as one of Ufotable's most impressive works to date. But Fate wasn't the only big project that year. Ufotable finally took the leap into adapting a franchise that'd been working with since 2010. God Eater is an action-heavy game series published by Bandai Namco, and given how Ufotable handled the original game cutscenes, the full anime adaptation felt like a natural progression. What made it stand out though was the art style. This wasn't your typical 2D anime, instead God Eater combined 2D animation with 3D models, using painterly textured aesthetic. The result is look like a digital oil painting in motions. The goal was to match the style of the original game concept art and give the anime a unique identity. But with that ambition came production headaches. Delays hit hard even though the show only had 13 episodes. It started in July in 2015 and didn't finish airing until March 2016. And unfortunately, the anime's new protagonists and changes to the story didn't sit well with longtime fans of the games. While some appreciated the fresh take and bold visuals, others were disappointed by the deviations. In the end, God Eater became one of Ufotable's more divisive works, visually stunning but narratively polarizing. It didn't hit the mainstream success of Fate, but it carved out a cult following among God Eater fans and animation nerds. And of course, Tales of Zestiria project keep rolling. After releasing the Dawn of Shepherd anime special as prologue the previous year, Ufotable continued working with Bandai Namco by producing the game's opening animations and in-game cutscenes. It was yet another example how Ufotable had become Bandai Namco's go-to studio for bringing their game worlds to life in anime form. In 2016, Ufotable continued to strengthen its partnership with Bandai Namco, diving deeper into the Tales franchise with the anime adaptations of Tales of Zestiria: The Cross. This anime didn't take long to arrive after the game release, which pretty much confirms that Ufotable had been involved in the project from the very beginning. And while Tales of Zestiria might not be the most beloved entry in the Tales series, some even call it one of the weakest, but the anime adaptations is a whole new different story. Visually, Tales of Zestiria: The Cross is stunning. The series is packed with gorgeous backgrounds, fluid and stylish fight scenes, and some of Ufotable's most impressive use of lightings and digital effects. From sweeping landscape to shots up to close magical duels, everything feels cinematic. You don't have to be a fan of the game to be completely drawn by the visuals alone. That said, the anime did stir up some divisive opinion, particularly in how it handled the story. Like many Tales anime adaptations, Zestiria: The Cross made major changes to the original plot. One of the most talked about changes was giving Alicia a much more prominent role than she had in the game, which pleased some fans and annoyed others. Key events were shuffled, reinterpreted, or skipped entirely, leading to a mixed reception from die-hard fans of the game. But interestingly, those creative liberties are what made the anime more appealing to a certain fans. Some even felt the anime improved the story compared to the original game by tightening the pacing, improving the character focus, and elevating the emotional moment. Zestiria: The Cross was split into two cours, with the first 13 episodes airing this year and the rest continuing in 2017. That wasn't all from the Tales universe in 2016 either. Bandai Namco also released Tales of Berseria, and of course, Ufotable was once again in charge of animating the game's opening movie and cutscenes. As expected, those sequences were jaw-dropping, with Berseria featuring some of Ufotable's most dynamic and intense in-game animation yet. Meanwhile, on the Type Moon side of things, there was a special little crossover that gave fans a bit of an older franchise one last treat. Fate Grand Order was becoming a mobile juggernaut at this point, and in 2016, they did a collaboration event with Kara no Kyokai. Naturally, when it came time to promote the event with an animated commercial, there was only one studio that could do justice. It's Ufotable. These commercials ended up being the last time Ufotable would animate anything for the Karano Kyokai franchise. In 2017, Ufotable took a brief detour from their usual Type Moon and Bandai Namco collaborations to explore something a little different, an anime called Katsugeki Token Ranbu. Set during the Bakumatsu era of Japan in 1863, Katsugeki Token Ranbu is based on the Token Ranbu web browser game developed by Nitro Plus, which had already grown into a quite phenomenon in Japan, especially among female audiences. But this wasn't the first anime based on the game. Token Ranbu Hanamaru, produced by Doga Kobo, had already aired with a light-hearted slice-of-life approach. Ufotable's take on this anime is completely different. Katsugeki is more serious, dramatic, action-heavy, and soaked in historical conflict. Instead of everyday slice-of-life comedy, we get intense sword fights, witty emotional themes, and a time travel plot filled with moral ambiguity. While it was critically praised for its animation, direction, and tone, Katsugeki didn't quite blow up commercially. Compared to the more accessible, character-driven charm of Hanamaru, this serious spin just didn't quite capture as broad an audience, especially when it comes to merch and fan engagement. Still, it remains a visually stunning and underappreciated gem in Ufotable's catalog. 2017 was also the release of the long-awaited return of the Fate Stay Night universe, with the first installment of Heaven's Feel. After the animated Bladeworks series wrapped up in 2015, production quickly began on these darker, more psychological adaptations of the third root in Fate Stay Night visual novel. Directed by Tomonori Sudo, with music by Yuki Kajiura, the movie embraced a much heavier, more tragic tone than previous adaptations. Visually, Heaven's Feel 1 Precious Flower is amazing. Every scene drips with mood, dark shadows, haunting lighting, cinematic storytelling. It was widely praised for how it captured the eerie, unsettling atmosphere of the root. That said, it wasn't very newcomer-friendly. The film assumed you already know what the Holy Grail War is, who the characters are, and how the world works, so if you jumped in without context, it could feel overwhelming or even confusing. The movie debuted at number 1 at the Japanese box office on its opening weekend, marking the first time a Ufotable film ever did so, a massive achievement that signaled how far they'd come. But Ufotable didn't forget how to have fun. In stark contrast to Heaven's Feel, they also released a short comedy anime called Fate Grand Order Himuro's Universe. Based on the Yonkoma manga by Eiichiro Mashin, this was a light, goofy slice-of-life spin-off filled with meta jokes and silly antics. It aired as part of the Fate Project New Year's Eve TV special 2017 and reminded fans that Ufotable still had a playful side, even in the midst of a dramatic with the Holy Grail Wars. They also continued their long-running partnership with Bandai Namco. This year, they saw the release of God Eater Online, a mobile MMORPG that came with a new animated content by Ufotable. They also created more material for the God Eater 2 pachinko machine, which included new cutscenes and reworked footage from the previous games. Another cool thing that Ufotable has shown in 2017 was an opening sequence for Anime Guild. But this is not an anime series. An Anime Guild is a TV blog on BS Fuji, a Japanese satellite channel, where anime is shown late at night. It's like a special time slot where they group several anime together under one name. Think of it like a mini club or guild where different anime shows air for fans to watch. And most often, before anime airing, the opening that Ufotable made is playing. The opening is really cool. It exemplifies Ufotable's commitment to creating immersive and visually stunning animations. In 2018, Ufotable continued doing what they did best, working with Type Moon and Bandai Namco, but also started to quietly branch out, taking a small but meaningful steps towards something new. On the Type Moon side, we got something very different from the usual Grail Wars and Severn battles, today's menu for Emiya family. Based on the manga by Taiyou, this Fate Stay Night spin-off dropped the swords and spell in favor. Set in the alternative universe similar to Fate Hollow Ataraxia, the story follows Shiro Emiya as he peacefully cooks Japanese dishes for his friends and family in Fuyuki City. It's all good vibes and wholesome moments. Visually, we get a soft pastel palette, adorable character design, and a gentle acoustic music that gives the whole series a warm, inviting feeling. On the Bandai Namco side, Ufotable was still heavily involved with the God Eater franchise. First, they produced the opening animation for God Eater Resonant Ops, a mobile spin-off. Then, they returned for the full opening and cutscenes of God Eater 3, a brand new entry in the series for PS4 and PC. God Eater 3 ended up being the final installment in the franchise. Since then, Bandai Namco hasn't released another God Eater game, and with that, Ufotable's long-running connections to the series come to a close. This year, Ufotable teamed up with Nintendo and Cygames to create an animated commercials and cutscenes for a new mobile action RPG called Dragalia Lost. Ufotable working with Nintendo is something that you don't see every day. Not only did they animated the game's promo scenes, but they also contributed to in-game card illustrations. With a project like this, it showed that Ufotable also willing to do something outside of Type Moon or Bandai Namco. 2019 marked a massive shift for Ufotable. This was the year they went from being a well-respected studio to a global phenomenon. For the first time ever, Ufotable released an anime based on a Shonen Jump manga. Well, technically it wasn't their very first interaction with a Jump title, but that project never turned into a full series and another studio ended up handling the main anime. This time, Demon Slayer, based on a manga by Koyoharu Kotoge, her first serialized work in the weekly Shonen Jump. Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba follows Kamado Tanjiro, a kind-hearted boy whose family is slaughtered by demons. His younger sister, Nezuko, is turned into one of them, but miraculously retains some of her humanity. Determined to save her and avenge his family, Tanjiro joins the Demon Slayer Corps, diving into a brutal world of blood, loss, and hope. The idea to adapt Demon Slayer into an anime actually came early on. Soon after the manga began serializations, Aniplex and producer Yuma Takahashi, a long-time Ufotable collaborator since the first Karanyo Kyokai movie, suggested that Ufotable handle the adaptations. Not only was Takahashi close to the studio, but he was also a fan, believing Ufotable mastery of intense actions and emotional storytelling would be a perfect match for the tone of the manga. Ufotable didn't hold back. The Demon Slayer Season 1 was cinematic, visually stunning, and full of heart. If Fate Zero put Ufotable on the map for anime fans, Demon Slayer launched them into a mainstream culture. People who had never watched the anime before were suddenly talking about it. Episode 19 was the turning point. That iconic battle, paired with beautiful music and Ufotable's breathtaking animations, made it become a viral sensation. It dominated social media and left people speechless. Kotoge herself said that the visuals and music were so incredible that she cried watching it. This was Ufotable's turning point, creatively, financially, and culturally. It redefined what people expected from the anime productions and turned Ufotables into a household name. But Demon Slayer wasn't their only project that year. Ufotable also released the second installment of the Fate Stay Night Heaven's Feel movie trilogy, Lost Butterfly. Directed by Tomonori Sudo with the music by Yuki Kajiura, the film built on the first movie's darker themes and reached new heights in both emotional depth and visual artistry. It debuted at number 1 in Japan's box office and surpassed its predecessor in earnings. Critics and fans alike praised its storytelling, emotional character arc, and of course, Ufotable's animations. In the gaming world, Ufotable continued working with Bandai Namco. They created the opening animation for Code Vein, a post-apocalyptic action RPG sometimes described as a Souls-like anime game. The visual style echoed their work on God Eater, blending CG environments with 2D characters. They also dipped into the idol world, creating the animated music video Bang 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 for Zool, a group from the Idol 7 franchise. This high-energy MV was part of the Black or White 2019 event and showed off Ufotable's versatility even outside of battle-heavy genres. But 2019 wasn't all smooth sailing. That same year, Ufotable faced a major scandal. Studio president Hikaru Kondo was found guilty of tax evasions, having concealed approximately 441 million yen in income between 2014 and 2018. The intentions, according to Kondo, was to buffer against potential financial instability to make sure the staff salaries and production costs would be covered. While that may have been the motivation, the court still sentenced him to 20 months in prison, suspended for 3 years, and imposed a 30 million yen fine on the company. As a result, Kondo's name was removed from certain production credits, and Ufotable became more cautious with the project selections. The scandal didn't derail their momentum. Production remained unaffected and their reputations among fans held strong, thanks in the large part to Demon Slayer's overwhelming success. Despite the turbulence, 2019 proved to be a historic year for Ufotable. But even after a year like this, they weren't done. "2020 was a tough year for the world, with the pandemic bringing much of an entertainment industry to a halt. Even anime wasn't spared. Productions were delayed, schedules were shuffled, and Ufotable was no exception. The final installment of Fate Stay Night Heaven's Feel, Spring Song, was delayed due to the pandemic, but when it finally hit theaters, its success outdid the previous films. Despite the delay, Spring Song opened at the top of the Japanese box office. By the end of the year, it has grossed over 2 billion yen, becoming the highest grossing film in the Heaven's Feel trilogy. Not only a commercial win, critically, it considered the strongest film of the trilogy. Spring Song is often hailed as some of Ufotable's most refined work to date. From fluid and emotional character animations to their trademark digital compositing and meticulous lighting, everything hit just right. One of the standout moments, Shiro and Rider vs Saber Alter, became an instant fan favorite. Right after the first season of Demon Slayer aired in 2019, the production team had already started planning the sequel. But instead of going straight into season 2, they made a bold decision to adapt the next arc, Mugen Train, as a theatrical film. Released in the late of 2020, Demon Slayer Mugen Train made history. It became the highest grossing film of 2020 worldwide, beating every Hollywood release. It became the highest grossing film in Japan of all time, dethroning Spirited Away and Your Name. And it played a massive role in launching Demon Slayer manga into stratospheric success. At the same time that movie was lighting up the theater, the manga was approaching its conclusions. The hype surrounding the Mugen Train fueled a manga sales boom unlike anything Japan had ever seen. In 2020 alone, Demon Slayer sold over 80 million copies, making it the best-selling manga of the year by a landslide. It even helped push the manga into the ranks of the top 10 best-selling manga series of all time. Mugen Train showcased everything the studio does best: their signature blend of 2D and 3D animations, their fluid kinetic camera work, their attention to emotional storytelling, all brought together in a single package. More than anything, Mugen Train showed the world what anime could be when given blockbuster treatment, and what studio like Ufotable could do when they were allowed to dream big. Financially, the film helped the studio recover from the shadows of the 2019 tax scandal. Creatively, it launched them into an entirely new league of influence. Ufotable was no longer just the studio behind the Fate or Karano Kyokai. They were the studio, the one pushing the medium forward on a global scale. With the massive success of Demon Slayer Mugen Train, it was only natural for Ufotable to keep the momentum going. The next chapter in the story, the Entertainment District arc, was already anticipated to be one of the best arcs in the series, and Ufotable knew they had something special in their hands. But before jumping onto that, they gave fans a little detour: Himetsu Academy. This comedic non-canon spin-off reimagines the characters of Demon Slayer in a modern high school setting. You've got Tanjiro and his friends as students, Gyu and Shinobu as quirky teachers, and Nezuko still rocking the bamboo muzzle. It's silly and light-hearted series, and it shows a more playful side of the Demon Slayer world. It also became part of official merchandise, team cafes, and events, proving just how big the franchise had become. Ufotable also did something interesting that year. They re-released the Mugen Train movie as a TV series, as a bridge, a transition into what comes next. The Entertainment District arc exploded in popularity. Fans and critics praised its breathtaking animations, especially during the final battle against demon siblings Daki and Yutaro. Ufotable delivers some of the most fluid, dynamic, and downright jaw-dropping animation sequences in recent anime memory. The use of color, the intensity of actions, the emotional stakes, it all become together to remind everyone why Demon Slayer was at the top of its game. It set a new bar to what anime can do. But Demon Slayer wasn't the only major project Ufotable had in 2020. They also returned to their longtime partner Bandai Namco for the release of Tales of Arise, the first new entry in the Tales series in quite a while. As usual, Ufotable handled the game's opening animations and cutscenes. And for longtime Type Moon fans, 2020 brought a new wave of nostalgia and hype. This was the year we finally got the remake of Tsukihime, A Piece of Blue Glass Moon, and Ufotable once again on opening duty. The anime opening for the visual novel is nothing short of mesmerizing, combining moody lighting, dynamic camera angles, and razor-sharp character animations. It perfectly captures the tone of the game, balancing supernatural horror with emotional depth. Characters like Shigetono and Ciel are rendered in hauntingly beautiful sequences, pulling us back into Type Moon's dark, mysterious universe. But that's not all. In December 2021, Type Moon dropped a surprise announcement. Mahotsukai no Yoru, or Witch on the Holy Night, was getting an anime film adaptation. Ufotable would once again bring Kinoko Nasu's world to life. At the time of this video is made, the movie hasn't come out yet, but a dramatic teaser trailer was released on December 2023. It gave us the taste of what's to come. 2022 was arguably the quietest year in Ufotable's recent history. While the Entertainment District arc of Demon Slayer continued airing until February, after that, things went quiet. No anime releases, no new movie premieres. But that didn't mean there was nothing to be excited about. In September 2022, during the version 3.1 special program for Genshin Impact, something huge was announced: a long-term collaboration between Hoyoverse and Ufotable. Ufotable was officially confirmed to be working on Genshin Impact anime project. This project has been described as a long-term collaboration, aiming to bring expansive world of Teifat to life through high-quality animations. Although it's still not clear what this project is about. Is it gonna be an anime or what? With no release date either. At this point in time, Ufotable was laser-focused on their crown jewel, Demon Slayer. With the final episodes of Entertainment District arc wrapping up, the studio was already deep into productions for the next arc. So, while 2022 may have been seem quiet on the surface, beneath it all, Ufotable was busy preparing the next big wave. If there's one thing clear about Ufotable in these recent years, it's that their full commitment has been locked on to Demon Slayer. In both 2023 and 2024, Ufotable didn't release anything else, just Demon Slayer. In April 2023, Ufotable dropped the Swordsmith's Village arc, spanning 11 episodes. Coming off the explosive action-packed Entertainment District arc, fans were understandably hyped. That arc had set the new bar for what TV anime could look like. But the Swordsmith Village arc was a bit of a mixed bag. The animation was still solid, but some viewers criticized the pacing, pointing out that certain episodes dragged, especially during fight scenes that seemed stretched a little too thin. The new villains Gyoko and Hantengu didn't quite leave the same impact as previous demons. Compared to Daki and Gyutaro or Azaka, they felt less threatening, less memorable. While there were some incredible moments, the arc overall didn't hit the same emotional or narrative height. It's often considered one of the weaker seasons in the series. The same thing can be said for the Hashira training arc, adapted only 9 manga chapters but stretched into the 8 full anime episodes. Many felt that the arc was padded with filler, training montage, quiet conversations, and scenes that, while beautifully drawn, lacked real momentum. It's arguably the slowest arc in the series so far. But even with those criticisms, Ufotable pulled off something remarkable. Just when people started to lose a little hope, they dropped one of the best episodes in the entire series. The final episode of the Hashira training arc was a turning point, not just for the arc itself, but for the entire Demon Slayer anime. It reminded fans of exactly what Ufotable can do when they decide to go all out. It began with an explosion, a devastating attack at the Ubuyashiki estate. It's a work of art. The blending of CGI and hand-drawn animations was so beautiful that some fans said it looked almost like a live action. The flames dance across the screen with elegance and horror, perfectly capturing the tragic beauty of the moment. The Infinity Castle transition completely blew everyone away, as the ground shattered beneath the Demon Slayer corpse and they were pulled into Muzan's domain. Ufotable unleashed their visual madness. The camera work twisted and flew in impossible directions. The lighting, the compositing, the motions, everything felt otherworldly. Fans immediately started buzzing with anticipations for what's next, the long-awaited Infinity Castle arc where the real endgame begins. While 2023 and 2024 may have been quite years in terms of quantity, Ufotable continued to show that they're still all about quality. So even in a slower arc, even with filler episodes, they still found a way to deliver moments that shook the entire anime community. Not long after the conclusions of Hashira training arc, Ufotable made a big announcement, one that would set the stage for the final act of Demon Slayer. The Infinity Castle arc would not be a TV series. Instead, it's being adapted as a film trilogy, with the first movie scheduled to hit theaters in 2025. The reactions is mixed. Some fans were thrilled. A movie format means higher animation quality, bigger budgets, and a chance for Ufotable to take their time and craft every frame. Others, though, were a little disappointed, hoping for a full TV season where the intensity and emotional weight of the arc could be explored in more detail, episode by episode. But if Mugen Train proved anything, it's that Ufotable knows how to turn a movie into an event. To promote the upcoming trilogy, Ufotable went in a direction no one saw coming: baseball. In a surprising move for the ever-expanding reach of Demon Slayer, Ufotable collaborated with Major League Baseball during the Tokyo Dome series between the Los Angeles Dodgers and Chicago Cubs. They created a special animated short that blended Demon Slayer's world with the atmosphere of baseball event, and it unsurprisingly looks stunning. At the time this video was made, Demon Slayer Infinity Castle had already been released in Japan, and once again, it became a hot topic among anime fans and the general public. Yet again, this film managed to break the previous Demon Slayer records, reaching 1.15 million viewers in a single day, making it the highest first-day box office in Japanese cinema history. The numbers keep climbing, and as of now, the film has secured a spot in the top 5 highest-grossing films of all time in Japan. Despite its breathtaking animations, the movie isn't without criticism. Many viewers have pointed out that the pacing felt disruptive, especially with the excessive use of flashback, but a lot of people still enjoy the visual masterpiece that is Ufotable. Looking at Ufotable now, it's easy to forget that they didn't start at the top. There was no explosive debut, no instant classic that shook the world, just a small team led by a quiet visions, experimenting and trying to create something. But today, they've become a studio widely recognized, especially among anime fans. Their style is instantly recognizable, beautiful animations, striking visuals, and many even consider them one of the greatest anime studios of all time. Personally, I'm really looking forward to Ufotable's future projects. Beyond Demon Slayer, I can't wait to see what they'll do with the work like Witch on the Holy Night, or maybe even brand new IP, especially since Demon Slayer is reaching the end of its story. They also have a collaboration with Hoyoverse in the works, though no one really knows what that will turn into yet. And deep down, I still hold onto a small hope that Girl's work is quietly in productions and will finally be released one day. To anyone who stayed until the very end of the video, thank you very much for watching and see you in the future.